Hi everyone. So the second video is about polymer clay. It's also known as Sculpey. A lot of people have used it before as Sculpey. I want to show you some different ways we can use this for this project. This is white Sculpey. You're going to have to color it yourself. I don't usually buy colored Sculpey because I like to control the colors and things like that, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Some other tools that I have is that I have lots of acrylic rolling pins. You always want to work with Sculpey on a really shiny surface, non-porous surface. We have these tiles right here that are very shiny, along with the acrylic rolling pin. This right here is a blade to cut the Sculpey with. And I also have these really cool texture tiles. I've got all different kinds of textures that you can use if you decide you want to do that for these. Now I'm going to talk mostly about making flat shapes, although you can go any route you want. I would really resist the urge to make large solid forms out of Sculpey, only because the firing time is a little bit complicated with those when you get up to things that are thicker than 1/2 inch or an inch. But also for weight. Sculpey can be really lightweight if you're using kind of a flat sheet of it to create shapes and things like that, but it can be really heavy if you're creating solid forms out of it. So first I want to talk about adding color to your Sculpey. To add color to your Sculpey, we use acrylic paint. So the acrylic paint is right here in the painting section of the room, right next to my desk. You can use any of these colors and you can mix them. This can be really, really dirty. So you're going to get your hands dirty and it's totally okay. If you are looking for the Sculpey supplies, they're in this cabinet right here, which is over by the sinks. It's kind of between the two sinks. We use Vaseline to kind of soften the Sculpey, although our Sculpey is pretty fresh and you shouldn't have a problem with that. I do have some little jars to store your Sculpey in, like if you make different colors and want to separate them and keep them safe. Our tiles are up here. Most of our supplies that you would need. Okay, this right here these are some Sculpey beads that somebody already made. Here's one that is kind of flat. Oh, it got all crumbled. Sculpey can be kind of hard, especially if it's older. The Sculpey I have is fairly new, but if you ever want to soften it, you just kind of work on it with your hands and kind of mold it. These types of beads right here are called Millefiori beads, and they're created by rolling Sculpey, creating rolls of Sculpey. So you can kind of see where this was on the inside, and then there was a little piece around it, and then they took a white sheet and went all the way around it. And then they just slice it, kind of like cinnamon rolls, right down to that side. I'm just going to move this over to the side though for now. But first I want you to look at this piece right here that somebody was using. This is a great example of kind of marbling your clay if you want a marbled look. It's basically where you're adding color but you don't mix it all the way. Or you mix a color with white or another color and you just keep kind of folding it on here, and then you can use your acrylic rolling pin to roll it out. If anything ever sticks a lot, that means you probably just need to clean it. You can see the cool marbling designs that you have there. And you can kind of play with that and cut it out however you want. Okay, so that's if you want a marbled look. We even have a little bit of purple in there, unintentionally. Now, making your own color. Okay, so I have my white, uncolored Sculpey clay right here. I'm going to just slice off a little bit. Try not to take more than you need, than you think you'll need, although we can always save it for the next person as well. So I'm going to put like a little divot in there as a place to kind of catch my paint when I put it in. And I always start with less paint than I think I'm going to need. And it comes out kind of quickly. It's because I have these Subway squeeze bottles. I'm trying to be careful. Whoop! See? Don't do what I just did. Alright, so I have put some paint into this piece, and I'm going to fold it up. Your hands are going to get dirty. That's the thing. So you need to be prepared for that. Acrylic paint does not stain your hands. It will come off eventually. It actually washes off pretty easily. I'd say, like, if I washed my hands with warm soapy water after this, it takes about 35 seconds for it all to come off my hands. Fingernails now, that gets a little iffy. I do have a nail brush at my sinks, so you can wash your hands really well. Something you have to keep in mind is that the clay is white, so how red interacts with the clay is how it's going to interact with like white paint. So you're going to end up with a really light pink to begin with, and you just have to keep adding a little bit more paint. I just add a little bit more and kind of work it in there. Now, acrylic paint does stain clothing. Even though it doesn't stain your hands and it washes right off of your hands, it will stain your clothing. So I would highly suggest wearing an apron when you are doing this process so that you don't ruin any clothing that you're wearing. You can kind of see the marbling happening here. You might decide you want to leave it with just the marbling. You might decide you want an intense color. If you want intense colors, it is time consuming. You know, you have to keep adding a little bit more at a time and work it in. And it might not ever get to be as intense as what you would like it to be. So your other option, of course, is to paint Sculpey clay when you're all done. If you don't have super complicated textures or designs in it or forms with lots of crevices and things, painting it might be a better option for you, and that would be totally fine. I'm going to just kind of keep it with this pink in the interest of time. I'm going to keep a little bit of this marbling in here. Oops, I got a little bit more paint in there. All right, so to flatten it, make sure I have a clean work surface here. So we use these tiles because they don't have any porousness to them. They're glossy tiles. They're completely, they won't take on any of the clay, so the clay hopefully won't stick to them. I'm going to use my acrylic roller to kind of roll it out. I'm just going to show you a flat shape for today, which you can totally use on your kinetic mobile. So I'm going to roll it out pretty thin. And then I'm going to show you how to use these texture tiles. Here I have this texture tile. I'm just going to put it right on here. All right? And then I'm going to roll the texture just really slowly. I'm not going to go back and forth really fast because I have to be careful as the clay shifts underneath it that I'm not kind of mucking up my design. I'm going to peek at it to make sure it looks okay. It does. It looks good. Take that off. There you go. I've got all sorts of test tiles for you to choose from for this, of course, if you want to go many different ways. Now, even though you're working with flat shapes on this, if that's what you choose to do, you might still decide that you want to create, in the end, some three-dimensional forms for your mobile. So you can manipulate these. Of course, we can have them. Oh, look at this is sticking. I must not have cleaned off my thing well enough. So if I really wanted that shape, I would have had to start over, but I'm okay cutting it here to be what I want. So I'm going to peel this up very carefully. You can kind of see where it left behind some residue. Oh, look, and I tore it. All right, so you have to make a decision. Do you want to restart it, or do you just want to trim away your mistake and make do with what you have, or to just change it? That's the thing about being an artist, is that sometimes you have to be, well, a lot of times you have to be really flexible. And if you're unflexible, that's okay too. It just means that you will have to start over to get exactly what you want. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I might decide that I want to kind of manipulate how this looks. So maybe I want to create kind of a curve here and press it in. so that when it's hanging, it looks a little bit more three-dimensional. I could even create more of like a wave like this. Oh, if I turned this like that. The thing is that as long as it's in the air, it's not going to dry. This is not like regular clay that we've worked with before. It does not harden until we put it into the oven. I've got a small polymer clay oven that I use here in the classroom. It looks like a toaster oven basically. And we use that, and as soon as we do that, when it comes out, it will be hard. Like you'll be able to it'll feel like plastic really. And so until it gets into that stove, and even while it's in the stove, it's very bendable, which is great if you want to change things, but it's not great if you want it to stay exactly the same and you're worried about it changing any shape. The other thing you can't forget about is having some way for it to hang. Now, of course, you can, I have all sorts of super glues and adhesives that you can glue like a wire to it if you'd like. You can obviously build on a way for it to hang, or even simpler, for this you could add a hole. The thing is that your piece will shrink a tiny bit when you put it in the oven, including the hole. So you want to make sure it's big enough that if it does close up just a tiny bit, that a wire can still fit through it. Okay? And also, this isn't like clay where you can, we've worked with clay and you can kind of like smooth out your edges with water once it dries, and you can sand it down and things like that. You really want it to be the shape, your final shape, by the time you're finished. All right, so what I've really learned in this process is that some paint colors mix better with the Sculpey dough than others. You really have to kind of pick and choose what route you want to go with that. You don't have to use Sculpey for this project. It's just an idea of something. I wanted to kind of demo it for you in case you want to use it. You can also make beads out of it. If you want to incorporate beads in your mobile that you want to hand make with the Sculpey, I've got a book here that will show us how to do it. There are tons of YouTube videos on how to do that, and I can kind of direct you into those directions. Okay? All right, if you have any questions, make sure you let me know, and you can also email me before class. So if you have questions, and I'm happy to answer those before I see you again. All right, I hope you have a great day.